Great. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. My name is Daniel Muzquiz. I'm the CEO of ExamSoft, and I feel like my whole life I've really been driven to assessment, and I think I've really come to love assessment as I've gotten closer to it. And I think the reason I love it is because it gives us some insight into what's happening in these little brains running around our campuses. And it can be really mystifying, but I think the great thing is with embedded assessments, using exams, essays, quizzes, but really using what's happening day to day in the classes, you can kind of take that science project and really bring more rigor to it and help these kids achieve their potential, because there's so many great things they can be, and I think we're all trying so hard to make them reach their dreams and what they're all capable of. And that's why I get so excited and I love it. Now, the reality is that, us as professionals, and I think at the conference we've been at here, we're seeing that, that there's a lot of challenges across the industry on institutions. So embedded assessment isn't necessarily top of mind when you think about an institution needing help. There's a lot of storm clouds out there with financial challenges. Some 30% of schools potentially at risk of some sort of financial way, or the credit hour under some pressure, competency-based learning, the kind of no baccalaureate left behind push. There's just a lot of things drawing our attention away from what's really happening in the classrooms. And I believe that, and I think we're seeing it with some great clients we have, that if we put students and faculty back at the heart of education, if we put students and faculty back at the heart of assessment, that's really where we can get some great things. And I think what's exciting to me is that the faculty are our partners in this journey, because they're assessing all the time. They're giving exams with grades, every day, many times throughout their semesters. And I think we all know, and I think the faculty do too, that we can do better than grades. There's a lot more out there. I mean, the reality is there's a bunch of embedded learning outcomes inside of each of these exams, each of these papers, whether faculty use the right words, or they say it in the right way, or they use the right jargon. The reality is they are assessing, and they know in their gut what assessment is. I think our challenge is, how do we make sure that all that work that they're doing to assess learning outcomes doesn't end up in the trash? Now, often we'll go in and grab a paper and maybe we'll do some sampling with it for some accreditation work, which is valuable, but there's a lot more we can do. Now, I think that's where we need to go back and look at embedded assessments and rethink how we do them. And what we're seeing and what we know works is if we go back and we actually take the rigor and partner up with faculty and help every question and every rubric row get mapped to a learning outcome. And that's right. It sounds like a lot of work, but the reality is if we go through and do that level of rigor one time, just once, you can get great insights and really change the fundamentals that's happening in assessment. And as professionals at this assessment conference, and the prior speakers and future speakers and the different sessions are really pointing out, there's a lot of work to be done in mapping learning outcomes. But the good news is that faculty need that guidance, and there's a great role for us to play helping faculty understand what they're assessing, what they're not assessing, so that they can take ownership of their own classrooms, of their own trajectories. And if we empower them and we help them build that map, that roadmap to where they're going, that'll in turn really feed the data needs that we all have when you start looking at program and institutional learning outcomes. And that's why I get so excited, because I know it works, and I know people are doing it. And I'd love to turn it over now to Dr. Jane Souza, who can come in and really share her experience and successes that she's having with her program. Jane?
Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate the opportunity to tell a little bit of our story. You said I love assessment, and I'll pick that up and say I love empowering faculty and students with assessment. I'd like the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we do with that. As the faculty code each and every one of their test items as you had suggested, instead of throwing it away, what we're doing is we're capturing all of that data. So at the end of every single exam, and at the end of the semester, and at the end of the course, we can take this data and give it back to the faculty, and they can look at how it meets their needs. Assessment meeting their needs turns the power back over to them. so that the focus is not on collecting assessment data for the accreditors or to meet specific standards, but for them to improve continuously in their classroom and to adjust their course syllabi based on evidence. If you look at this chart, faculty always map their learning outcomes and then to map it to an assessment that they do to support those learning outcomes. There's nothing new there. But what we are doing now that's a little bit different is looking at the student average, not on the test, not on the course, but on the individual learning outcomes. For example, over here in this, you can see that the student average is 71.1 on outcome number 3. That empowers the faculty to say, okay, I'm not happy with that performance level. I'm going to tweak my course syllabus and try to move the needle and get that percentage higher on that learning outcome. So they have the data and they're using it to improve their own coursework. The other thing that this chart shows is since we're capturing every single question for every learning outcome, in this example I can see that learning outcome number 5 has only 10 questions mapped to it. So maybe the faculty isn't stressing that particular learning outcome and didn't realize it and said, oh, I think I'm going to add more questions in that area and strengthen my course that way. So you see how an example of how the faculty can use the data. Here's a quick example of how the students can use that data that we mine. Here is a student looking at 4 courses that she is taking, and she's a great student. She's all A's, right? Doesn't look like there's any problem. But if I look at this by learning outcome instead of by course, I can see that on learning outcome number 3, she has a 72.5% average. So maybe there were only a few questions on that particular outcome, but over time I can see there's a persistent weakness. We actually did experience this with an A student, and we found a weakness in calculations that we never would have found if we didn't look at this granular level and access and mine the data from all the learning outcomes. What we do actually is create longitudinal reports and give them to the students at the midterm and at the end of the term. Then they reflect on their areas of strengths and weaknesses, and they meet with their advisors to come up with a plan of how they are going to address those weaknesses in the learning outcomes. So overall, we're empowering the faculty to make quality changes to the curriculum and empowering students to remediate themselves and take some ownership in their plan to remediate those weaknesses. And does it work for us? Actually, yes. In 2010, we had our last accreditation visit, and I don't know why everybody calls it a ding, but we were dinged, and it was noted we really needed to spend more focus on assessment. And I'm happy to say that in 2013, we won an Excellence in Assessment Award, a national award from AACP. And then the work that we're doing, we had an invited paper in NILOA, and our faculty are doing some wonderful research looking at pre and post test data and how they are using that data to make evidence-based changes in their classroom. So we are really happy with the outcomes of this process. And I know my colleague Shawntay would love to speak to you about her experience as well.
Thank you, Jane. Hi, I'm Shawntay Sparks. I'm the program chair of the ADN program for TSTC in West Texas. And we love outcomes. And as an educator, outcomes are vital to student success. And as a nurse, outcomes are even more important based on the life and death situations that come about with being a nurse. So we love outcomes. Our program was established in 2008 as an online accelerated program with coverage to 26 counties and 2 locations. And the goal was to increase the educational and knowledge level of LVNs in these rural areas. With that come accreditation issues and maintaining approval with the BON. Having these accreditations and having the approval from the BON also can be your poison. Without adequate outcome measurement and student success, these things can cause detriment to a program. As you can see, in 2009, our pass rate was 76%. In 2010, it was 75%. And in 2011, it was 77%. The Board of Nursing requires that first-time NCLEX test takers achieve an 80% for the program. As you can see, we did not achieve these numbers. So in October of 2011, we met with the board and we were placed on conditional status. Conditional status simply means that for us, no admissions means no program. It was at this time that the Board of Nursing allowed us to revamp our curriculum and look at what we could do to beef up the program to get it out of the slump. So we began mapping every assessment to every learning outcome, whether it was a clinical learning outcome, an outcome in the didactic portion of a course, clinical measurements, whatever. We had assessments mapped to each of these outcomes. Looking at these outcomes answered some very important questions for the program. When analysis was done, we were able to see where we are as a program, how the students fare individually, how they fare as a cohort, and then looking at it from a longitudinal aspect, from cohort to cohort, test to test, student to student, and for the student throughout their academic career within the program. We were able to find where our problems were and address those immediately in our curriculum, and also get a clearer picture of what students were at risk and even be able to identify why they were at risk. Being able to look at the outcomes of not only the program and the students, we were able to revamp and overcome some of the hurdles of the past. And as you can see today, we have achieved 100% pass rate and are now on initial approval. And in October, we will be looking at going to full approval. Outcomes for us are vital. Not only are they essential to student success, they are also essential to the program. As of today, we are the only state-funded two-year college who function in a performance-based environment, meaning that we are not reimbursed until our students graduate and they are employed. So outcomes to us determine whether we are successful as a program and within our college setting. Because of outcomes, our program is now secured. We have achieved what we needed to achieve and are looking forward to making the program stronger as the NCLEX test plan gets harder. Our accreditation is currently aligned, and we are in good standing with the Texas Board of Nursing. Additionally, having outcomes and being focused on what they mean and how we can improve our program and increase student success has saved a lot of time. It's easier to work with a student that's passing than one that's failing. Additionally, these outcomes have improved the validity and reliability of the statistics that we provide, the tests we give students, and the reports that we submit to maintain accreditation and program alignment. And finally, 2 of our faculty members were recognized at the NISOD 2013 National Conference for Excellence in turning the program around in a year's time. So for us, outcomes are everything.